All right, welcome back to episode 5 of Doc Talk. We are yet again here with Dr. LaPlaca in her beautiful podcast studio with some beautiful props. Are any of these for sale?
I don't know. Maybe this one and that one probably. This is like a piece, I've had that piece probably for like 30 years.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a Blackhawks fan, so I actually have a tattoo right here.
Oh.
Blackhawks.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Right now. I just realized it's not working either.
What? I'm just kidding. I know. It hasn't worked. It's right 2 times a day. Yeah. And then this actually is, but I don't actually know
what it is.
I don't know where it's from, what it is. It says Dinkelsbra. Blah. Ooh, I have some friends over in Germany. I should ask what this means. And then it has like a little inscription here. It says S.SIC or S.C.
Maybe that's the artist, maybe?
And then 930. Anyways, it's super like one piece of wood, super detailed, hand carved.
Not for sale because you don't know the actual price of what it's worth.
Yeah, maybe it's worth $4 million.
I
don't know.
Maybe make him an offer.
Maybe it's 7 cents. Who knows what it's worth? I like it.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about the training process. So the last episode we talked in very deep depth about the evaluation process, what makes our evaluation process extremely unique, and how you kind of created it, and how we're tracking that data. So after an athlete's come in for an evaluation and you send a detailed report about where they are and all these different pillars that you measure, what happens next?
Okay, so we'll run them through like the first 5 or 6 sessions is really establishing where they're functioning from a training standpoint. So we'll get them used to the virtual reality, different programs that we run, probably like 5 or 6 different programs that we run in there. We'll get them used to like how all of those function. We'll get them used to like how to do the fit lights on the wall and kind of the cadence of how that works. We'll get them used to different drills on Synaptech and different drills that we've created from like a traditional vision standpoint. And so like us understanding where they're functioning requires those first 5 or 6 sessions, so then we know how really good they are at all of these different things. And then in the training, we want to push them to their Goldilocks zone. So I don't know if we talked about the Goldilocks zone before or not, but the Goldilocks zone is from the principle of where the earth sits in relationship to the sun for us to have life on the earth. So like we're in this Goldilocks zone where like we're not too close, we're not too far away, and so it's like we're right in the right spot for it to be just warm enough, not cold enough for us to have life. And there's like you can see instances of this in all sorts of different ways in terms of like the principle of it. And we use this in training because we want to train them so that it's not too easy for them to get bored. So if we're training them as if they're a 10-year-old, like, and they're 30 years old, it's gonna be boring and they're not gonna like do it, right? Or if it's like same and repetitive, it's gonna be like, okay, we're gonna drop out after this training. If they train within their comfort zone, so doing something that they're used to over and over and over again, they're not going to get the results that they want or that we want them to get. And then if we also train them too hard, it's going to be frustrating. They're like, well, I'm not good at this. I'm not going to do it. I don't know how to do this and blah, 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 right? Like, so they're going to talk themselves out of actually training. So like our job is to train them in this area, which is like between 4 to 7% harder than where they're comfortable. And so if we can train them in that Goldilocks zone, then like they know we're pushing them, they know where they're at the upper level of what their vision and cognitive systems are capable of, and they know that like they're trying to achieve the next level. And so like that's really like what those first 5 or 6 sessions are trying to figure out is where are they at and how can we push them specifically to get better.
And so they're training in this Goldilocks zone, and the first 5 to 6 training sessions you mentioned are them just kind of getting comfortable to almost the circuit style layout that these type of trainings are laid out. And can you talk about, what was I going to ask you?
About like the way that we set up
Oh,
training?
sorry, about how they go from, the 5 or 6 getting comfortable, understanding how we do it, to the personalization. So we take their
Mhm.
evaluation and let's use, maybe they had a hard time with multiple object tracking and let's say near far shift. So we take that data that you compiled in this program, and then how do we take that as trainers after they've started to get comfortable with the process and how we do things? How do we at the same time get their lower below average scores, or those areas that they struggled with, on top of making sure that they're improving or staying in the average or above average categories for all these other pillars?
Mm-hmm.
How do we make it personalized towards them?
Yeah, I think it's really understanding the things that they're not doing well and focusing the tools that we have available to us to like focus those things for them, right? Like, so let's say somebody comes in, like you're talking multiple object tracking issues. So if they have multiple object tracking issues, I'm gonna probably put a higher propensity to do neurotrainer Gust for them versus doing Power Beats or like another virtual reality program.
What does Gust look like, and what does Power Beats look like?
Right. So Gust is, you're in the VR and you're in this room and there's multiple different like robots out in the room, and we can probably maybe put a video clip of this on top of it, but there's multiple different robots out in the room, and each of them are going to shoot a stimuli at you. And so most of them are going to shoot like a yellow ball at you, and you're going to use these paddles in your hands to like block them or hit them. Some of them are going to have bombs that are going to shoot out at you. And so in your head, what you're having to do is process where the stimuli that you have to hit are, but then also process where the threat is. So by doing this, you're having to track the threats who are moving out here while also maintaining, like, seeing all this other stuff happening, right? So that's essentially multiple object tracking while like having to figure out where these threats are coming from. So if we put it into like a real life situation, let's say you're quarterback, you're having to process what's your offensive line doing, what are the edge rushers doing, what are your receivers doing, where are the DBs lined up, where's the safety pushing, where are the linebackers at? Like, these are all multiple objects moving at the same time. And so you have to be aware of, if that linebacker drops into coverage, well, now your guy going over the slot you're not throwing to him, option 1 is out, so now you got to go option 2. You're having to process where the threat's coming at, all while being rushed at by 300-pound men, right? Like, that's important for them to be really, really good at. And if we find a quarterback who sucks at multiple object tracking and they've been getting sacked a lot, we know where the problem is, right? Like, we can understand that they just can't process all of these things at the same time. So it's a skill we need to focus on for them.
And then versus Power Beats, where you probably wouldn't have them doing as much, what does that look like, and what's the purpose of that exercise?
Right. So Power Beats is more of like confidence in your strokes, in your hits, and localizing in space. So like, there's objects coming at you. You have to kind of duck and weave and like hit these objects with as much power as possible, but then also you have to hit them in a certain style and sequence, and you also have to be aware of where these objects are coming at you straight ahead. So it's just more like singular here, while having to understand where your hands are in space in order to hit those things. So it's more like if somebody comes in with a spatial localization issue, so they don't understand where the hands are in space appropriately, then this is something that we would concentrate on for them, right? I think overall, we're going to put just a little bit heavier focus on some of the things for them in those realms. But overall, we're trying to address all of the things that I think make an athlete successful and impactful kind of at the same time. So all of these things kind of layer on top of each other, which is why our training is so different, is because it's like, how do we look at all of these things and make all of these things a little bit better, 1% better. You know, you hear that a bunch now, everybody's talking about that. But like, it really is like, how do we make all of these 50 different categories 1% better? Because that's not just 1% overall better. Now you're talking like exponential growth of better in all of these categories together. Because it's not like when we're training our brain, we're not just training one piece of it. We're training like the relays of all these things. How are all these things interconnected? How do they talk to each other? How do we make new connections so that they talk to each other better. Like that's really what is happening within your brain, is like, how do we take all of these pieces and put them together better?
You've always talked about how our training is backed by science and data collection. So you can kind of explain what that means and how we've created this 45-minute training session based off of years of data that's been collected, and how you've essentially just created this program that there's proof in the pudding and what they're doing.
Yeah, so that's been the crux of everything, I think, is really like, how do we utilize drills and pieces of equipment that give us data, first of all, but then how do we also create different drills and stuff that might not previously like give you data, like, but how do we make it so that it gives us data? And that might sound confusing, but so like even in the virtual reality, we're only doing programs that are not sport specific, meaning like I'm not going to put a baseball player into win reality, because I personally, in my opinion, don't think that works to like put them into a virtual environment, at least not at this point, to put them into a virtual environment and a non-realistic distance image that they're having to track or use their vision or their focusing system to determine what pitch is coming and like all of that stuff, right? Like I don't think that works yet. And this is a problem called I think it's called the accommodative vergence conflict, the AVC, something like that, where the vergence system and the focusing system can't make sense of what it's seeing. Not that it can't make sense of what it's seeing. It's not functioning how it should normally function, because everything's right here in their vision when actually it's projecting out as distance. So that's a piece of like the science behind like why we don't do sport specific stuff. Like all I'm looking for in the headset is visual processing speed. Like how do we process a bunch of information? How do we take in a bunch of information? How are we getting like high reps and low stress on the body to maximize how much information they can take in and how they process that information? That's, again, backed by science, that we only want to do this for probably like 15 to 20 minutes max in a session. So the focusing system and the visual system can only take about 15 to 20 minutes, where it's like able to do that work without having it be a negative impact. So if you're doing 45 minutes of VR stuff, like that's too much VR for the day for you. And then this is cited in a few different research articles. But then also what it does is it gives us what's called neural priming. It's like warms up your eyes and your brain, almost like jumping jacks for your visual and cognitive system, so that the physical stuff that follows is going to get an increase because everything's already warmed up. And so I think there was a research article that says like upwards of maybe like a 31% increase from doing neural priming. So like that's just one example of like how the research leads us to determine how to build the training program. So like the beginning of our training program is only 15 minutes in most cases, because of the stuff that I had learned and researched and took a look at. So then I was like, okay, that's all we're going to do then. And then this is what's going to lead us to, okay, once that's done, then we're going to move on to the next piece of the training, right? Like, I think that's really like how we constructed things, is like, how do we do that? And then I also wanted to figure out, how do we make this athlete specific? Like, how do we get their heart rate up? How do we get them like functioning as if, a hockey player at the end of their shift where they're busting for 30 seconds straight? How do we simulate something like that for them, where their heart rate is high and their cognitive level is impaired because of their heart rate being higher? How do we simulate something like that? And so then I did some research, and I was like, okay, well, if we're going to track heart rate, we're going to look at heart rate variability. Then we're also going to look at like, what does that affect in their reaction times, their raw reaction times, their choice reaction times. So how do we simulate that for them? So then we developed like a HIIT style of the training program. It was like, okay, we're gonna put them on the bike for 30 seconds, have them sprint on the bike for 30 seconds, get really winded, come back upstairs, run this drill, and then go back downstairs, run another 30 seconds, come back up, and then we're gonna see what that does to their cognitive abilities on the drills that we're running in terms of that. And so that's built into the cycle of how we run the circuit of everything for the training program. So when I say backed by science, it really is like, how do we simulate and create a program that's really helpful and beneficial for them without causing any detriment in the process. And I think we've been really intentional about that.
So what's an example that you can kind of share with, let's say you have 2 training sessions today. You have one with a baseball player that's coming in for his 5th session, and you have an IndyCar driver that's coming in for his 100th session. How are those training sessions going to look similar but different?
Right. So let's say 5th session of a baseball player who's how old? 10, 12, 13, 18?
Let's do 18, similar
Okay,
ages.
so 18 years old. We've already run through all the other programs except for this last one that we have, because this is our 5th one. So we'll run them in the VR, and we'll take our time, like really discussing what they're going to see, how the program should run. We'll maybe even put them through a tutorial on that. We might, put them at the lowest level for this specific application and say, okay, here's the scores. Okay, we're going to push you a little bit here. We're going to push you a little bit here. Once they complete a score, they did really well. We're going to move you up. We're going to move you up. Then we're going to go to the fit lights. And we're going to say, okay, we're going to run full purple only fit lights. Just raw reaction time on level 2 or 2.5, depending on how big they are.
And that's
like
them
the
just standing next to the wall.
So yep,
6
them in front of the
lights.
wall. There's 6 lights lit up on the wall, and one will go at a time. And we're just looking for like how fast they react to that light out of their peripheral vision, right? And so how fast can they get to that thing based on the standardized wall that we've created? That like what's their score? And then we'll put that into our database, right? So average reaction time, gross motor for an 18-year-old baseball player is probably somewhere 400 to 450 milliseconds on level 2 or level 2.5. So I'll say, okay, that's good, or that's standard, or hey, that's really fast, you were 350, we're gonna move you up, or we're gonna push you just a little bit to like figure that stuff out. And then we'll move them over to the Synaptech station, and we'll run eye-hand coordination, and we'll be on level 4, purples only, with a 90-10 distribution, which is like 10% in the middle, 90% on the outer, and we're gonna see how he does there, right? Like it's still that feeling out process of how well they're doing on these certain tasks. And then we're gonna go back to the wall, we're gonna go back to so we're gonna do this like back and forth, and that's pretty much 45 minutes, is like him learning some different skills, different drills, and that kind of stuff. The 80th session for an IndyCar driver, it's gonna be way different. So we're gonna put them in the headset, they're gonna know exactly what they're doing. We're gonna run Gust on expert, or we're gonna run them Gust one-handed. We're gonna like really push them outside of their comfort zone. Then we're looking for their scores to be above a certain level. We're looking for, their scores to be 40,000 points, and then their balls blocked is gonna be blank, right?
Yeah.
Like we have these metrics.
It's on the
all
VR, there's 5 games that we have them play, and they all start in some sort of fashion.
rookie,
Beginner,
lower, yeah.
moderate, expert, super expert. Basically, there's all of these different, and each session they're coming in and doing one of them.
Right.
So it takes so many sessions to be able to build up that skill and that speed to be able to track multiple objects, or to be able to, do power beats and hit it at a certain precision and accuracy. So it takes them sessions and sessions and sessions and sessions to build all the way up from the beginner level to the expert level. So you're saying probably by 80th session, 100th session, they're pretty much in that expert range, advanced range, compared to the person that just came in and experienced their first or second time using VR.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So like we've over the multiple sessions that we've run, we understand where their numbers should be and where their numbers shouldn't be, and like what's going on with them specifically, right? when we go to like the fit lights or we go to like the other thing, like this is going to look completely different too, because we're not just on the like the beginner level of just raw reaction time or like making choice decisions. Like we're actively trying to not break their cognitive system, but like we're actively trying to like make it so that it's super hard for them. So let's say I'm running a session and I want to try and simulate IndyCar for our IndyCar driver. I'm going to put them on level 2.5. I'm going to do red green inners, which is like the innermost lights of the fit lights. So it's super small stimuli. Then we're going to have them put on weighted hands, and we're going to have them put on their strobes at a certain level. And then we're going to have them running the red green. So they're going to have to do right hand red, left hand green. So they're making a cognitive decision. They'll go run, or they'll go do 30 seconds on the bike, come back up, run this, while we have a tablet in front of them, and they have to do addition problems, or they have to do subtraction problems, or they have to see a number and add 2, or they have to see a number and subtract 2. Like, we're gonna make them have to visually process here, make a decision out here while they're under stress.
And while they're training, we're counting how many mistakes they're making, whether it's on the addition or the right hand, the left hand, and that's all data we're tracking on top of how quick the reaction time was.
Exactly. So we want to know, like, okay, over time they've gotten better at their decision making, they've gotten faster in their times, or hey, as their times have gotten better, their decision making has gotten worse, and we need to course correct for that, or we need to pull them back because their times are super slow when we get to this level. So we have to drop them down to no weighted hands, or like we have to change the variables to get them back to where we want them. And so all of that is like how we get to this place, but it doesn't come through just like pushing them to make it hard for no reason, right? Like my goal, I always tell like all of our clients is like, in their first 5 or 6 sessions, like if you leave here and you feel slow and dumb, then I'm doing my job. Like I am doing the thing that I'm supposed to do to help you get better. So like that's a major push. It's like we can't earn the milliseconds and that we need to give them if we don't push them outside of that zone. And like that's really, really valuable for like how they gain their milliseconds.
And
right?
if you take that IndyCar driver on their 80th session, and instead of doing the red, green, the small lights, the weighted hands, the strobes of bikes, and hey, we're gonna do purples only, full purple, just like the baseball player that's on his 5th session, their times aren't gonna look alike because
it's gonna be insane.
Right, because everything feels slower, right, for the driver to go down to the basic level and just do raw reaction time compared to having to do choice reaction time with a high heart rate. Just tracking all of these things that us as trainers are taking data on, where it slows everything down, and that's your goal, right? Is you want the type of training that we're doing to eventually correlate to on the track, on the court, on the ice, on the field, to essentially slow their sport down to make it feel like they have more time to make the proper decisions.
Yep, 100%. I don't think you could have hit that on the head any better. And I think that's like we'll run what's called a speed session, right? Like just to give them that if I notice that somebody's like starting to become a little bit inconsistent, or they're starting to like struggle with some of the tasks that we've been doing, or we just did a reevaluation and we want to test their speed session, like our job is to like know these things about our clients and then to like adjust as needed. And so like when that happens, I'll put them through a speed session because I want them to feel how much they've actually gained from when they first started to where they're at now. Like, cause again, my job is to make them feel slow and dumb as they're going through stuff. Yeah. And so I want to like give them a reprieve every once in a while to be like, oh shoot, okay, no, this is working. Like that was super easy. Like I was super fast. Like, and give them that good feeling and then go back to busting their butts. Like that, I think that's the thing that like, our job as trainers is to understand where they're at and what their needs are, and like how we help them achieve the things that they struggle with.
What are some examples of some exercises that we do in the office that may not look like, if you're watching or doing it, it simulates something correlated to their sport? But you mentioned the football example with Gus perhaps, but are there some other things, whether it's on the tablet, certain other psych lab exercises that we run or fit lights, what are some things that these athletes can maybe hold on to or grasp that, hey, we're doing this in the office. It doesn't identically look like it translates to driving a race car, but the second that you're in the car and doing these certain activities, there's a direct correlation to the work that they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the things that I've been really intentional about is I'm not going to be your basketball coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to be running a whole bunch of basketball drills with you. I'm not going to run your baseball drills with you. Like, that's not who we are, and that's not going to be the thing that we're experts in. And so if people are looking for a sports vision optometrist who also trains every single sport, like, it's not gonna work. It's not even a unicorn. I think it's just an unreasonable thing to look for, and I think that you water down whatever you're doing, right? Because like, I want your coach to be your expert for your sport. I'm the expert from here up. Like, I'm gonna take care of how your eyes and your brain process information. So it's not going to look like your sport ever. Like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not trying to make it look like your sport. Like, I'm not just gonna toss on a pair of strobes and tell you that we're gonna run this drill and now you're gonna get better because you're wearing a pair of strobes.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how this stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that understanding that makes it very easy for people to like then understand that, yeah, it's not gonna look like my sport because they're not concentrating on my sport's overall function. But it all translates to your sport because we're working on how you process visual information. So like, all of the things that your eyes have to do, like all of those things have to be the focus of what we're doing in training. So so like the Aries pyramid drill, if you're looking for an example, right? Like, it's a drill that's on a tablet or on a piece of paper where it looks like this, and you start at the top and you say out the letter or the number, and you have to do this like back and forth all the way down to the bottom as fast as you can, and then all the way back up to the top, right? Seems easy. It's going to take you, 22 to 29 seconds depending on the person. But what you're doing is you're like slowly increasing how your eyes are jumping from point to point and picking up that information, right? So you're a quarterback. We'll just go back to that because that's easy. You're a quarterback and you have to like look and see out here, or you have to look and see what your linebackers are doing. Like, that's a smaller jump than out here, but you still have to be able to do this really well and go bop, bop. And those who can pick up all of that information faster, process that information, and then translate that information, even if it's a millisecond, even if it's, 1 second improvement from 22 to 21 over the course of a couple months, like, that's a big improvement. And so like, they might not fully grasp where all of this plays in their sport. That's my job. My job is to know that this is going to help you be better in your sport. And I don't mean that to sound like arrogant or cocky, but like, that's really what I want us to specialize in, is like, I don't want you to have to worry about, well, this doesn't feel like my sport. Yeah, it's not gonna. I don't really care that it doesn't feel like that. Because early on, like, I did all that stuff. I tried to make it feel very like goalie specific, sports specific. But like, the setup, the takedown, the time to do all of that stuff, it is not practical to do, and it becomes tedious. It becomes like, I don't know. It feels like we're wasting time and money and energy doing something that is not well programmed out just because you want it to feel like your sport.
Right. Even that example you used with the quarterback, I think like that could apply to the safety on the other side of the ball. They're seeing what the other DBs are doing. Where's the quarterback looking? What are my linebackers doing? You're sitting back waiting, and you're making the decision based off of all of these things that you're tracking, left, right. You use a hockey goalie, the puck is moving at ridiculous speeds, it's small, and you're on ice skates and you're watching your team and the defender, where's the puck going, where are the wingers going, all these things that translate to almost every single sport. So for sometimes, people want their sport to be individualized, and they want to be able to do something with a tennis racket, or they want to have a basketball in their hand, to make it feel like they're doing that sport-specific
Right.
exercise. But in reality, almost everything that we do in the office can translate in some shape or form to whatever sport that these athletes are playing.
Yeah, I have zero doubt that it translates 100% to all of the sports.
Mhm.
Like maybe the only sport that I like, wrestling, maybe is probably not a good one, but like
Mhm.
even that, like you're still like you have to be body aware, you have to be positionally aware, you have to like be able to react quickly, or maybe like swimming, but like
Mhm.
there's few and far between things where it's like this wouldn't positively impact your
It's not going to negatively affect
Sport.
any sport that
Right.
tries, you may
Yeah.
not have as great or as growth, compared to other ones that rely more on eye-hand coordination and quick reaction times,
right.
like running or track and field, but there's still going to be some growth there.
Right, and I think the ones who like understand that are the ones who are adopting early to it, right, and understanding that this is like super beneficial. Like if you're a soccer goalie, you understand like one-on-one situation, penalty kicks. Like you have to determine what that player's doing with their foot. You're having to figure out what's their hip, is their hip dropping, so they're going to go upper left, or like how does all of that work, so then you can make the best attempt at the save
Right.
possible, and like that's going to be different than like a swimmer or
Mhm.
a track, but like it's still going to help you
For sure.
regardless.
Piggybacking on some of the examples where these certain drills or exercises correlate in these athlete sports, what are some testimonials that you can share? Not only we have the data, we can see what their fit light score was when they started versus, where they are now continuously training with us, but what are some client testimonials that you can share of examples of these athletes in their sport,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that their game is getting better, they're seeing the ball better, they're, tracking defenders better? What are some examples that you can share in all different aspects of athletes and sports that we coach?
Yeah, I think that's I've done a couple of case studies. One would be to like the website. If you go to the website, AriesEliteSportsVision.com, if you go under research, so if you go under resources and then research, like there's a case study about a hockey goalie that we work with who had problems and issues, and we cleaned those up, and then he, it's the whole path of like him training with us and the improvements that we found along the way. So that's probably an easy thing for you to go like look up and find. And then another one would be when we work with whole teams, like pit crew teams, the overall improvement that these teams see from like a raw decision, like a raw reaction time standpoint as well. We also wrote a little white paper on that as well. So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking for, or like.
I think more testimonials from clients saying, I've been training here for 2 to 3 months. Maybe they kind of had this aha moment where it feels like it's getting easier in the office, and then they go and play basketball, drive in a car, get on the ice, and they realize there's a specific anecdote or story that they've shared that I would not have been able to do that if I wasn't coming into Aries.
Yeah, so there's a young Carter, and his name is Asher Ferris, and he calls these his Aries moments, where he'll be on track and there'll be like a dust up, there'll be something like happens in front of him, and he like comes out of it unscathed, right? Like, and he's like, oh, I just had an Aries moment. And those are the kind of things that like I think that had he not been doing training, he would have gotten into a wreck. That wreck now costs mom and dad $1,000, $500, whatever, like however much that is, because of the axle was broken or the tire got bent or whatever. And that's the immediate ROI on doing training. But he also has like confidence that he's going to be able to do the thing that he needs to do because he's been training, right? Like I think that's like a two-tiered system. There's a bunch of other examples where like one of the Indy Next kids who we started out training, he started training with us maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, and early on in maybe like 2023, he said he was at a game, like a soccer game, and he was sitting in the stands, and a ball from the stands was flying like towards a girl he was sitting next to, and he like reached his hand out and grabbed it and like saved her face, and he was like, I can't believe I just did that. And he like called me up and he was like, I just have to tell you this was super cool. Like I like went Spider-Man in front of this girl and she was super impressed, and it was one of those moments where it's like, yeah, those are the things that like they notice, like people will notice.